right, so we have a 2014 Kia Soul Plus, and the problem we're having, at least for the last couple of months, is whenever we would fill up the tank all the way up to full, the next day or two, the fuel gauge would go all the way down to 0, and then the range would also go down to 0, and it would also throw a check engine light. And we'll see if it does it whenever we start it up this time, which it does not. So anyway, whenever we would fill up the fuel tank all the way up to full, the very next day, it would go down to empty, and then the range right over here would go down to 0 or do the dashes, and then we would also get a check engine light. Now, as of a couple days ago, in the quarter range to halfway range, it would do the same thing. It would drop down to 0, the range would go down to 0 or show the dashes, and then we would also get a check engine light. So today we are going to be fixing it ourselves. I think we're actually going to save a few $1,000s doing this ourselves, because if we took this to a dealer, they're going to charge an arm and a leg. They're going to want to replace the fuel pump and then all the labor and stuff that goes along with it. We're not going to do that, of course. We're going the cheap DIY method, and what I ordered was a fuel level sensor. Model number is 94460-2V000. Okay, but anyway, I got this off of Amazon. I think it was 40 bucks. This is all it is. It's just the float level sensor. But the biggest part is we have to remove the fuel pump, because that's where this is attached. Okay, and the fuel pump is going to be underneath the rear seat right over here, so that's what we're going to remove first. Step one, of course, is open up your back hatch and remove the cover. I have that sitting right there, and we need access underneath here in the center. We need to get to this 11mm bolt right here, so we are going to remove that. All right, got the 11mm bolt out here. Next is putting your seats back up. And now we need to lift up on each side of the rear seat. And then we can remove the rear seat. Next step is removing this plastic cover right here. So this does have a seal on the bottom. Okay, so we're just gonna lift that up. I'm gonna try to keep that seal as good as we can keep it, so we can just reuse it. Okay. I'm going to shove some of that wiring through there just a little bit so we can put it on its side. Here is going to be our fuel pump, and we need to remove this so we can change out that fuel level sensor. So there are a number of bolts going around the outer edge that we're going to have to remove. We're also going to have to remove the 2 fuel lines. To remove those, there is a little button on the top that we have to depress and then slide out. We also need to remove these 2 connectors right here, and those should have like a squeeze connector right here on the back side for this one. Should be able to squeeze that and pop it up, and then same thing for this one. It's going to be right here on the back. There we go, just like that. And then for the fuel lines, again, we'll just push down on the little button. We might have to slide them towards the center, push it down, and then release it. And also be aware that these are your fuel lines. One's gonna go to the engine and the other one's gonna be a return, okay? Just FYI. You are gonna get some fuel spillage around here, so it'd be good to have a bunch of paper towels or rags underneath here to soak that up as best as you can. Once we get all the bolts out there and we start to remove this, we're going to lift it up very carefully and then set it inside of a bucket so we don't get fuel on basically everything else. I'm going to put some paper towels in here to soak up the fuel as much as I can. I'm going to get some safety glasses real quick just in case it's under pressure. Okay, that one came off really easy. That one must be the return. There was no fuel coming out of that. That means this one's going to be our pressure line. So I'm pushing forward just a little bit so I can push the button down. Oh, yep, there was some fuel spray. Okay, I think we're going to make a little bit of a mess here, which I would imagine this one could potentially leak a little bit more. I'm going to try to dump it on these rags right here. Okay, Alright, so I am going to attempt to make like a makeshift plug with one of these rags so I can shove it in here just to slow it down a little bit if I can and keep it clean. Next thing we're going to do is remove all the 8mm bolts going around the outside. These are also a Phillips head screwdriver if you don't have an 8mm. Our ring right here should be loose. We can remove that. I'm caught on the other fuel. All right, so we can get our ring out of there. And we're gonna bring our bucket a little closer so we can carefully remove this. Now there is gonna be fuel in here, of course. So just be aware of that. And the fuel, the float is actually kind of gonna get hung up on the bottom a little bit. So just be aware of that. You can see the fuel draining, hopefully. And we have our float right there. I'm just gonna let this drain for a second. Okay. And then we'll lift it up into our bucket, just like that. All right, we got the fuel pump out, and the part that is bad is gonna be this little wiper right here. So whenever the arm moves up and down, that sends a resistance along these two wires up to probably your computer or your fuel gauge, stuff like that. So somewhere along here it's probably burnt out, and it does look a little dark in there, but that's how these things work, is it just measures resistance as it goes along all of those little marks right there. Now another thing I just noticed real quick is this arm looks a lot different than the one that's in there. This bar is nice and long and straight. This one's a little shorter. But in theory, it should all be the exact same. But what I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna try to measure the resistance from empty and full and see what those are. And then I'll compare it to these ones right here and see if it's the same. But I'm guessing it's probably the same, and I guess if I really wanted to, I could probably pop out the arm right here and put it on this one, and that should be no problem if it comes down to that point, if we need to. Anyway, I'm gonna measure the resistance real quick to make sure it's all the same, and then we will swap this out in just a second. Okay, I'll put our meter on resistance, and if we just kind of measure these two probes right here, we're getting 200.2, and if I move it up to full, getting 7.7. 7.8 to 200. So now what we'll do is we will measure this one the same way. We're getting 199.4, which is close enough. And then if we go all the way full, 7.8, 7.9, which is identical to the one that's in here. So I think we're gonna go ahead and replace it. All right, so on the back side of the sensor, it's gonna be hard to see in here, but there's a little raised piece of plastic right here, and that is inserted on the fuel pump itself. So what we're gonna have to do is either lift up or push down to release it. And then there's also the wiring that goes up to one of the clips right up here, which we will have to pull out. So the wires are clipped up here towards the top. So we'll get those pulled out. We need the inner one right here. So this is real easy. It just clips in and clips out just like that. Got the wires in this clip right here. Okay, so there is a little tiny piece of plastic right here which locks this in place. So we're gonna use our thumb. We're gonna slide it down. Yep, there we go. Just popped right out of there. All right, so everything is basically the same, and to put it in, it's just in reverse order. Should be real quick and easy. So we'll pop the little plastic piece in there and then raise it up. And you heard the little click in place. We'll reroute our wires through the existing clips again. Boom, just like that. Our new one is in place. Nothing binds or hits on anything, so now we can reinstall the fuel pump. All right, fuel pump is going back in just as we pulled it out. So the little arm is gonna go down in there first. Might have to kind of wiggle it just a little bit to get it all the way in there. There we go. Get our fuel line out of the way, and we'll get it positioned roughly where it was before in the same direction. Boom, just like that. And then we will insert our ring. Okay, got our ring in. Now we're going to reinstall our little tiny bolts here. And I'm going to put down 2 of them first just to kind of hold it in place. Boom, there we go. Now we can install the rest of those. All right, now when we're tightening these down, you don't have to be a gorilla or anything like that. Just make sure they're nice and snug, and make sure you do it in a cross or star pattern, just like you're installing a tire. Now that I tightened them all, I'm just gonna go around and verify they're all the same tightness and make sure I got them all. All right, next is gonna be reinstalling the fuel lines, and before I do that, I am going to wipe it down real quick just to make sure there's no debris or dirt or anything on there. And to put those on, it should be the exact same thing. We just kind of push them in place. Boom, just like that. All right, next thing is reinstalling our connectors right here. Make sure they fully snap in place. And then the last thing would be is reinstalling this cover. And before we do that, I'm just going to wipe down this edge so there's no dirt stuck to it. All right, battery died there real quick, just had to replace it. So last thing we got to do is reinstall our cover right here, and we are done. I did pull that through just a smidge. And we're going to line up our arrow with the arrow on the body here. And boom, that's it. Push it in place and we are done. All right, now that we have the cover back on, what we can do next is test it to make sure everything is working correctly. So I'm just going to go into accessory mode. Previously it was stuck on 1/8 of a tank and it said we only had 60 miles left. We actually have 109. And we're just over 1/4 a tank. All right, next thing we can do is reinstall the seat, and don't forget about the bolt that's right back there. All right, next part of the video is going to be changing out the spark plugs in the 2014 Kia Soul. So if you don't need to do that, then that's the end of the video. If you want to learn how to change the spark plugs, then continue watching. But the main reason why you would want to change the spark plugs is if, well, for one, they've never been changed, and number two, 3, 4 is if you're having a little bit of rough engine running. If it's you come to a stoplight or stop sign and you kind of feel the vehicle shaking a little bit, it's just running a little off, or if your fuel mileage is going down, there's all sorts of different reasons why you would want to change the spark plugs. But for this one is because we haven't changed them yet. It's only got like 50,000 miles on it, so I don't think they're technically due until 100, but we're gonna go ahead and do it now because occasionally we do have a little bit of a rough idle whenever we're in gear at a stop sign or a stoplight. You can kind of feel it shake just a little bit. So that's what we're gonna be doing for the rest of the video. And again, this is gonna save you a ton of money versus taking it to any other repair shop. And it's gonna be super, super easy, okay? So I bought the Autolite Iridium XP spark plugs, again, right off of Amazon, and these were not too expensive at all. Part number on these is XP6203. Again, I just got them right off of Amazon, but if you have a local auto parts store that you like to go to, they should have these in stock. All right, so all we need to do is lift up on each corner of this cover, and it'll just pop right up. Just like that. And then underneath the cover, we're gonna have 4 ignition coils right here, and underneath the ignition coils is gonna be your spark plug. So we're gonna have to pull each of these out, and each one has a 10mm bolt. And for this one right over here, we may or may not have to remove this right here in order to get this last one out. But we'll see whenever we get to that point. All right, so we're gonna start with this side first. So again, it's a 10mm bolt. We'll slide out the ignition coil. Boom, just like that. And then our spark plug is gonna be down that hole, and it should be a 5/8 or 16mm socket. This one is kind of like a special spark plug socket because it has a piece of rubber inside that will grab onto the spark plug so we can pull it out of this deeper hole. Boom, just like that. And just looking at this one, it actually doesn't look too bad, but I am going to replace it since we have new ones. All right, here's a side-by-side comparison. I know you won't be able to tell with the camera that I'm using right now, but I'll take a picture of it just so you could see the difference. And it's not too bad. All right, so we'll just go ahead and replace that one, and we'll just continue on down the line. And just FYI, again, you don't want to be a gorilla whenever you tighten these down, because everything inside here is aluminum and you will strip it out, which would be a very bad day. All right, I'm just gonna give it a little turn here. Right there, and that's all we're gonna do. All right, and then the ignition coil, tighten that one back down. Boom, and done. All right, I'm gonna put it on a time lapse for the next 3. Boom, and there we go. All 4 spark plugs are changed, and it really only took maybe 5 minutes. Mine took a little bit longer because I did have to remove this fuel line right here. All you have to do is flip up the plastic piece right here, and then there's a little gray piece right there. You have to compress that, and then the line will come off. I just use a flathead screwdriver and put it in there and slid it in this direction, and then the line came off. And just be aware, this is a fuel line, so make sure you have safety glasses on so you don't get sprayed in the face. And then to reinstall it, all you do is push it on to place and snap that right there. And I also took a few extra minutes because the little rubber piece that holds the spark plug inside the socket actually broke, and it got stuck in the 3rd cylinder right here, and I didn't know it until I was doing this, so I had to pull this one back out to retrieve that and then put it back on. But if I didn't have to do all that, this would take maybe 5 or 6 minutes. All right, let's start it up and see how it runs. All right, everything sounds and looks good. We're gonna go ahead and reinstall the cover, and then we'll go take it for a test drive and fill up the fuel tank. Boom, 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 and boom. All right, next thing we're gonna do is take it for a test drive, make sure everything works great, and then we're gonna go fill up the fuel tank and make sure the gauge works as it should. Just gonna take it on the highway real quick. Fun fact, I T-boned somebody at this intersection. They went through a red light and I T-boned them. So I'm gonna stop here. Yeah, I went through my light and he came this way and I just T-boned him and destroyed his car. I'll insert a picture if I can. Make sure our acceleration works good. Yeah, it feels good. Yeah, I think everything's good. Everything seems to be working great. We're gonna go and fill up the tank real quick, and right now we're sitting at 1/4 of a tank, and I believe that these are, oh, I'm gonna go first. I believe these are 12-gallon tanks, so we should put in roughly 8 gallons if we're reading correctly on the gauge. I hope the pump isn't broken. All right, we fit in 11 gallons. I'm gonna really max it out. Now we'll just take a look underneath the car and make sure we're not leaking. I don't see anything down there. All right, we got 11.67 gallons. It cost, well, I tried to get it right at $42, which I did. So it's a little more than I thought, but I don't know. I guess we'll find out in a couple of days and see how it works. All right, it goes up to full, and I don't have any weird codes or anything like that, so everything seems to be working fine.
The following day.
Alrighty, very next day, and let me just explain. Whenever I pulled out this fuel pump and we changed the sensor out yesterday, I didn't throw it away or anything like that, just in case I, came across a problem or whatever. When I was editing the video, it kind of looked, I don't know, I could see it a lot better, I guess, in the video. But just like I mentioned yesterday, the arm is slightly different than the original that came out. I don't know, I was just kind of thinking about it and thinking that it might actually give us, I don't know, it could potentially give us an incorrect reading. So I don't actually know if this is the correct sensor that goes in this vehicle, even though that's what showed up whenever I searched it. I don't think it's gonna be too much of a problem because, I don't know, it all works basically the same. I think this one right here will actually sit just slightly lower than this one right here, which might give us a little bit better or more accurate reading whenever we're on empty. And I think that's going to be obviously the most important time, so you know when to refuel. Okay, I was thinking that whenever we were on empty, it might give us an inaccurate reading just because they're slightly different. So if I go all the way up, the old one goes up a lot higher than the new one. So I don't know if that would, it might say that we're full a little bit longer than we actually are. All right, so I think I am going to change out the arms or swap them out just so it'll read a little more accurately, or just like it used to. That should be real easy. There's a little tiny clip right here that we can push down with our thumb and slide it over, and then it'll slide right out just like that. So that's what I'm gonna be doing with this one right here. Should be able to do it right here as well. There we go. Swap out the arm. I don't know, I will just feel a little more, I'll just feel a little bit better if we swap these out. Boom. There we go. Now I think it is gonna read a little bit more accurately. Okay, so I'm going to throw this back in, and if I have any problems by the end of this video, I will, of course, report back. Alrighty, got her put back together. We will just, confirm that it's working just fine. All right, everything appears to be working as it should, so we're sitting on full, which is correct because I did fill up the fuel tank yesterday. And then, of course, our range is at 372 right now. We don't have a check engine light or anything like that, so everything appears to be working fine. And of course, if anything changes by the time I get this video edited, I will add that in wherever necessary. Alrighty, I think that's going to conclude the video. So if this video was helpful in any way possible, make sure you like that smash button on your way out, and I'll see you on the next one. Merging to get up to speed and merge. Look at that, 60 and 60.